What was the incident in your high school? At my high school, seniors had to do a senior project. Can be anything really. Just plan it out and follow through. A very popular and well-liked senior made an end-of-day announcement that tomorrow morning he'd be in the student parking lot working on it and needs as many other folks there as possible. The next day he drives into the student parking lot, set up a tripod and a camera. A large crowd gathered round, just about 30 minutes before the first bell. He hit record. Thanks everyone for showing. Then he reached into his car, pulled out a handgun, and killed himself before anyone could react. No one knows why. He was a great guy with a bright future. Never know what struggles others are going through. I think about it frequently and take that into consideration to try and be nice to others with random acts of kindness. It was the last day for the senior class. There were only 2 significant pranks that day. The principal's office was filled with balloons and glitter, and the main hallway entrance was saran wrapped. About an hour before the day ended, the principal came over the loudspeaker and said that anyone caught participating in a prank would not walk at the graduation ceremony. About a minute after he said this, the fire alarm went off. A guy who was near the principal said that he got angry and said out loud someone's not walking before storming off. An entire wing of the school was hazy and smoke was pouring out of a classroom. Turns out the science teacher was doing a laser experiment for his class and created too much smoke with a smoke machine. This was back in the 70s. In 7th grade some girl just started groping the boys. If you got close to her she would immediately grab your groin or butt, whichever was closer. Sometimes she would grab both at the same time. Of course the boys started groping her back and it turned into a common thing to do and she let it happen. The boys then started groping other girls. Some went along with it and thought it was funny. Others got upset and told teachers and the principal. The principal called a big assembly and read the riot act. The girl that started it all acted shocked and outraged, but the adults knew she was the one that started the whole thing. I didn't transfer in until after it happened, but I had a classmate who was in the room when it happened. Our 9th grade year, 1989 to 1990, one of the guys in the theater/drama class had been threatening suicide and to hurt friends and classmates. She and all her friends went to the teachers and principal, but were told they could do nothing because he had no history and therefore he had to do something first. He did. Walked in mid-class, took the entire room, including my friend and her friends who had reported his threats, hostage, brandished the gun around repeatedly, then shot one of their mutual friends who was trying to talk him down. Kid lost his ear, but not his life, thankfully. She was still giving legal depositions 2 years later when I met her, which is how I heard the story. A girl in her final year got pregnant and was hiding it from her parents. She was 18 at the time though. She went to the counselor, qualified clinical psychologist, who was helping her through it. The counselor walked her through all of her options and did what she was supposed to do. The girl, I think possibly in denial, carried the baby to quite far along but then wanted out. She was also starving herself. Long story short, I also can't remember all the exact details. She apparently went to a dodgy clinic where she convinced them she was much earlier in the pregnancy, guessing they did no tests, and they gave her abortions pills or something like that. Like I said, can't remember the exact deets so don't crucify me. She started profusely bleeding in class the next day and was rushed to hospital. The baby survived for about 4 hours and then passed away. Obviously by his point her parents were there. Upon questioning she named out school counselor and said that she had forced her to have an abortion. This whole case went to court. Our poor school counselor could not say anything or defend herself publicly until the case was done. We had reporters outside our school gates for ages. It all came out at the end that the girl had lied and the counselor was completely innocent and had just done what she was supposed to do and had offered the girl all the information and advice for her to make an informed decision. I was amazed at how professional the counselor was and how she did everything by the book when it came to speaking about her client. Anyway, that was crazy. When I was in high school, our Hicktown school had a gang called the Cobras who would spray paint cobras on school property, write it on desks, in the bathrooms, basically everywhere. It was dumb and many of the students had a good idea who was a part of this gang, but the teachers didn't. The principal would call down groups for photos in the yearbook, siblings, sports teams, drama club, etc. on overhead announcements, and one day they called down the Cobras for a school photo for the yearbook to try and figure out who they were. They caught almost half the students who were defacing school property because they showed up for the group photo. One of the students ditched high school one day and rode his dirt bike really fast in front of the school, popping a wheelie while the school was still in session. He wiped out and slid and hit his head on a light pole and died right in front of the school across the street. Really sad and super crazy. Senior year we received our yearbooks the week of graduation, and to our surprise the full page action shot for men's soccer show cased our player jumping up and lifting one leg to trap and control the ball. Unfortunately, he forgot to wear underwear that game and the tip of his wiener was fully visible sticking out of the bottom of his shorts. Our school had over 4,000 students, and we were required to bring our yearbook into security to have the dick sharpied over, or we would not be able to walk at graduation. There had been rumors since my freshman year about the assistant principal taking a certain special interest in a few of the girls. Almost everyone wrote it off as high school kids starting stupid rumors. Until my senior year, when 4 police officers came in after school and walked him out in cuffs in front of a few hundred students watching a basketball game against another school. He was freaking one of the girls in my grade and selling her oxycodone in the hallways. Got 10 years. We had a teacher who was super nice. She was out for 3 days and we didn't question it much until she wasn't there again for the next week. Turns out her husband murdered her quite brutally. Was so quiet the next few months for that class we didn't really know how to process it. He is in prison and kids with the grandparents last I read. Quite sad. I was a teacher and a very good kid just got pushed to his limit by a bully teacher. Had been bullied by this guy for a couple of years. Never did find out what was up with that. So bully teacher says something to the kid. He runs out to his car, grabs a crowbar, and comes in smashing all the glass he encountered. It was safety glass, but lots of shards anyway. Tries to go after the teacher to kill him. He got trapped in the library. The classroom was located in a small classroom off the library, and I was right next door, keeping kids in their seats and unable to go to the bathroom for about 90 minutes. Cops began arriving from all directions, since we were right off 2 state highways. State cops, canine cops, etc. Kid destroyed all the beautiful 1940s oak shelving, teacher's desk, anything that would break. His mom shows up and disarms him. Kid gets slammed on a stretcher and hauled off to the nearby AFB, where his dad worked. Not sure exactly what all happened there, but he got a lifetime ban from being at the high school and a serious restraining order from ever contacting or being near the bully teacher. I like the kid, never had once tiny bit of trouble with him. Saw him a couple of months later and asked him to please tell me if he was ever mad at me. He laughed. Kid was diagnosed with intermittent explosive disorder. Went on to be a good adult. He just kind of lost it that day. During lunch if you picked up trash and turned it into the yard attendant you would get a dime per piece. One kid did it religiously every lunch and was tormented and bullied the whole time. Kids would knock the trash out of his hands, push him over when he picked it up, call him all sorts of names. They were relentless. Then in junior year, he bought a '66 Mustang. Not an incident really, but I still have respect for that kid. Someone called in a bomb threat to my middle school and elementary school. Instead of evacuating both buildings we were in lockdown for 3 hours and they condensed all of us in the middle school. We later evacuated to the high school only like 300 feet away and were stuck there for hours because our parents couldn't get to us. All of our phones were taken because they didn't want us giving information, so there were like 700 white moms and suburbans simultaneously having a heart attack trying to get to the school. We learned later they called this into almost every school in the area. There was a robbery at a Bank of America while the cops were preoccupied. One time this kid I was friends with brought this hot sauce called Da Bomb, 1.5 million Scoville units, hotter than hell, to high school and let a bunch of kids try it during lunch. I mean at least 30 kids. Some kids really started freaking out because that crap is ridiculously hot, like you're supposed to add 1 or 2 drops to a big batch of chili to make it spicy. Some were trying to show off and took a swig of it and ended up vomiting everywhere from the heat/panic. Multiple kids had to go to the nurse and be sent home because they way overdid it, although I think most just really had no idea what a Scoville unit was or that they made hot sauce that was that ridiculously hot. It was chaos. I tried it as well, a dime size amount, and I couldn't concentrate on anything but chugging milk. And I'm really good with spicy foods. Finally the principal came on the intercom and said whoever brought the hot sauce please just stop. My friend got into some pretty big trouble for that one.